Good morning and welcome to the Dark 30 edition of the Seth Rhodes Show. Yes, that's the Dark 30 edition, and we are driving to the day job in the dark as we head into the fall equinox. Just kidding, I don't know what that is. We're heading into the darkest days of the year, and because my job starts a little bit early and I have limited time to shoot, I end up shooting in the dark, so this makes for terrible video quality. But I am not apologetic because at least I'm trying, and it only gets better from here. So, possible workarounds for the Dark 30 edition is you have cool lights in your car. Wouldn't that be great? You could do that. Do some sort of cool lighting effect. I actually kind of like that idea. So, I refuse to not get better at this every single day. And I'm not much of a video guy, so I tend to focus on audio and, well, mostly just speaking. I'm not even an audio guy. I'm just a guy who likes to talk and likes to hash things out loud, and helps me grow, helps me become more valuable in my presentation skills. So right now, I was listening to e-commerce guru talk about how to find good drop shipping products. Oh my gosh, what a banal topic. What an over talked about thing. That's at least what I always thought. That was my impression. It's not that cool because it's done too much. But then I thought, dude, don't try to be too smart. You need to create bigger income, and if you don't have a product or a service, you have very little control over what you get paid, right? Isn't that the simple equation? Own a product or service, and you, at least in theoretically, have some ways of changing what you make. Now, if you are in sales, so I've heard, you also can control what you make. And something like a real estate agent can also make huge gains in their annual wage. But most of us are locked into cost of living raises and small bonuses. We're talking 1 or 2% at our day job. But inflation is anywhere from 3 to, 40%. Just depends on what you're buying. If you're like me, and like most people in the bottom rung of income, hey, I'm just being honest here. You spend most of your paycheck on the basics: shelter, energy, and food. And those, my friend, are not 3% inflated. Those are well above that. So, it's important to realize what you spend your money on. And if I just showed you a graph of my W-2 wages compared and contrasted to inflation, and inflation specifically related to housing, energy, and food, you would see that I'm going to struggle to pay the bills in the future. I'm really going to struggle. I'm already struggling. And why would I not try to sell something that would increase my earning potential? So you'd say, well, that's about the simplest motivation out there. I don't have enough money to pay for the basic necessities of life, so I am willing to explore things that I hitherto is not interested in. So e-commerce is one of them. I always shied away from because I had no interest in selling. I thought people would magically find me. I thought people would magically see the value in what I offer. I thought people were stiffing me when they didn't just hand over their money. So I thought I was being humble. I thought I was being intellectual. I thought a bunch of things. But this latest rendition of my thinking is nothing's more humble than trying to sell. Nothing's more practical than trying to come up with a product idea, trying to come up with a business model that serves people. You can say, well, you're just serving yourself. Well, I'm not just serving myself. It definitely served me if I could pay my bills and more. That would definitely serve me. But if I'm offering a product, it's going to be something I believe in, I think is good. So back to the drop shipping model. I had to rationalize a little bit why I would consider something like drop shipping. But one, there are good products out there. Two, retail is something I accept as a viable business model. It is just arbitrage, right? You get a product from a supplier in bulk under agreement, you get it at one price, and you mark it up to sell it to the end user. That's the business model for most. And it'd be nice if you didn't have to mark it up, but where's the profit? So you have to mark up an item. And I think I thought that was evil. I always thought that was evil or not a great way to do business, but now I'm like, dude, when I went out and did landscaping work for people, I had the hardest time figuring out what my hourly time was worth. It's really hard to assign worth to something, but when you have an input cost, all of a sudden you know anything less or equal to input cost gives you no profit. And if you have no profit, you're not in business. Basically, if you have no profit, you're not in business. You can't sustain that way of life for very long unless you have other income streams. So there has to be a markup if there's to be a product. Now, one could say, well, supply and demand sets the price. It kind of does. That's a major force. But you yourself have some say in it, especially if it's your product or service. And your price can change, with seasonality. It can change with your input costs. You're trying to keep a steady profit, and most businesses try to do that, so their prices change, their markups change. I know that's immoral, it's just how you stay in business. Now, people get a little offended if they find out that you've marked up your product some magic X percent, and like, well, the only holy way, the only right way, the only correct way to mark something up is X percent. Well, I don't know about that. I think you get to decide, and market forces, being what they are, they will often drive down a price. When there's competition, usually there's a curve of what you can ask for a product that kind of helps you determine where you're going to fall in the markup spectrum, let's say. You can mark up average, you can mark up to a high degree, or you can mark up less, and those are different positions in your niche, and neither one's right or wrong. It's just a different percentage of markup. So now that I've explained my thinking, my reasoning about markup and the right or wrongness of it, I think the only thing that I can establish is that if you don't mark up your supplies, then you go out of business. So there has to be a profit margin, and I think it's easier on a product or a service where you know that the input costs are, and you can calculate year to year what you need to make to continue to offer that product or service. Now, when it's just your hourly time, I think it gets a little trickier. Well, it's not, maybe it's not trickier, I'm just less experienced at it. You can find a way to set your own hourly wage, but usually you're basing on other people who are doing the same thing. So if you're the one of a kind, no one else has a service like yours, it stands to reason that you could charge more. You could mark up by more X percent because there's no one to compare to, and then you just go test the market, see what people are willing to pay. I know, I used to think that was weird, wrong somehow. Like, you're tricking people by asking them to pay 10x or 1x when you could actually be paying it for half of that, half X. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. If you're going to stay in business for a while, if you're going to be sustainable, you're going to have some input costs, and those do help you determine, or at least could help you determine your ask price. Now, I know I'm talking about basic stuff that maybe I should have known already, but there's no should in this. It's just me learning and getting better at stuff. I want to get better at stuff, and hopefully everyone listening wants to get better at stuff. So that's my spiel in the dark on markup, profit, and I'm talking to my former self, the dude who wished he knew how to run a business, wished he knew how to charge for services, wished he knew something valuable that people wanted. Well, now I do. I have a lot of value. And by talking it through, by presenting the pieces I have, by being generous with any information I have, I just increase my value. I get better at presenting, I get better at formulating and talking through ideas. And hopefully that creates value for people who were in my shoes. I should say who are in my former shoes. We're all trying to get better at business. We're all trying to earn a living. We're all trying to figure out what to charge. We're all trying to figure out how to charge. We're all trying to figure out how to determine products and niches and sell. And on this channel, I usually invest. One thing I learned on the investment thing is you can't invest money you don't have. So increasing your income and getting out of the rat race is huge. There are a few people, I know them well, who do very well as employees, who do very well with what I would call the older model, which is go to school, work hard, get a good job, you're set. There are a lot of people doing that, doing well. But the economic forces have really, really changed. And for some of us, no shame, for some of us, it is harder to do the employee thing for various reasons. It's harder to earn a good income that way. So, that's fine. There's also the factor of what does your heart want? Would you like a little bit more say in this? Would you like to take a little bit more leadership? Would you like to take on a little bit more risk? And how do you do with repeated failure? Can you persevere in an environment where you fail a lot? Can you persevere in an environment where you think you have a great idea and no one else does? Well, if you can do those things, then you probably should be in business for yourself. I'm not saying those skills don't translate to W2 world. They 100% do. Maybe 200% do. But the return on your time is going to be capped. Usually, I don't want to cap anything. Me, anyone else, anyone's in earning potential, I don't cap anything. But the W2 route, I guess you could say that there is no cap. If you could prove to your employer that you carry the entirety of the business, that you outwork and out-earn almost everybody with your ideas and your work, then maybe the sky's the limit for what you can earn from that company. Maybe. But generally, it's set up for the owner to reap the rewards. That's kind of why they went into it, is to employ people and reap outsized rewards on their ideas. And, potentially your ideas, because that's just the model. It's not wrong. I like to think, here's what I like to think. People start out as employees, like me, and gradually learn the skills to run businesses themselves. And so as your knowledge increases, your earning potential increases commensurately. And then you're unfettered by the model. So the model you use when you're at your best performance is one with a higher return on your time, potentially. But if you're like me, you're probably going to need to do both. You're going to need the stability of a day job with its low wages and just really, really simple value equation. You show up, you do what you're asked, you get paid. Now you can see why that's not a very secure model in the long run, but generally people think that's secure. I would argue that's wrong. However, it's simple. It's very simple. Someone else has pre-programmed what you're worth and what your time's worth, and you just say yes and do what you're told. And you're compensated for that. That's one model, but I think you should also go into business for yourself in your spare time, because that has the potential, with lots of perseverance, lots of bad ideas, and lots of failed attempts. I say bad because, just for simplicity, 9 out of 10 businesses are going to fail. You're going to have ideas that other people don't appreciate the way you do, or for whatever reason doesn't work out. Call them bad ideas. I don't care. There's no shame in having a bad idea. The good idea is the one that other people pay for, in this case. You have a lot of bad ideas, but eventually you have the chance for outsized gains, big returns. Sky's the limit, right? But you have to put in years and hours practicing through your bad ideas, testing for market validation, testing models to see what actually works. That's how you're going to get more return on your time. And it makes sense. You're taking on responsibility for the idea generation, you should get rewarded. As an employee, you can have ideas. I don't want to sound like you can't have ideas, but your best ideas might not be compensated much more than your average ideas. See what I'm saying? As an employee, you're paid often a salary or hourly, and you're expected to do the same thing with little variation over the long haul. You're more of an input. Your input cost to the business, and you provide a value, and that's calculated. You know, it's calculated on a 1 or 2% growth every year, and you're compensated on a 1 or 2, 3% cost of living raise, and then some performance raises if you're extremely extra dedicated. And that's the part I get at. And this is not to say, I'm not trying to create a wedge, but if you're one of the best sort of employees, why not become a business owner? You've already proven that you're able to work in the very, 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 very top echelon of the curve. You're way outperforming your peers to get a little tiny bit more compensation, generally speaking. If you take that same energy, put it into a high side hustle, and then back off and be an average employee, or if you want to do both, I think you'll burn out, but you can do both. Most people could not be the top performing employee and run side business, but some people can. I think for most people, do an excellent job of work, be above average employee, and then have a side business that you put your very best ideas into. I think that's the best way you can take care of your family and beat this inflation if you are in the U.S. economy. And it's no secret, everyone's in the U.S. economy because of the global aspects of how the dollar affects everything. So people like myself who actually live in the U.S. are more so in the U.S. economy maybe than someone in another country, but we're all affected by this. And your country has inflation, my country has inflation. Tell me in the comments, how are you beating inflation? And finally, work hard at what you love. See you later.